Good morning, Year 11, and Happy New Year. A strange way to start 2021, but we're here nonetheless. If you see my screen randomly moving, it's because, as per usual, the cat is trying to get involved in home learning, because why wouldn't you? So, I know before Christmas we said that we would move on to English Language Paper 2, but as everything's a bit up in the air at the moment, we thought that we'd stick with what you know and what you're confident with for now, which is English Language Paper 1. The skills are transferable, so it's going to be useful to you either way. As always, feel free to drop me an email anytime. More than happy to support you with absolutely anything. I'll try to make it for your lessons, but I'm actually going to be in mini school, so I will be able to respond to you, but I might not be able to physically be there during the lessons. So that's just a heads up on what's going on. Now, on the screen, you can see the plan of action for today's lesson. So we are focusing on the delightful text of it. Why not? Why not freak yourselves out with 2021? So first thing, paper 1 review, which will take about 5 minutes. So just what question is what. The reading of it, not the whole text, just an extract. Question 1, which as you know is only a couple of minutes. Question 2, which we're going to spend a lot more time on, with a bit of self-assessment at the end, and I'm going to get you to upload your question 2 and your self-assessment to Teams. The assignment is already on there. So let's get cracking. Okay, a little quiz. Let's go. So, in your books, do it at the back of the book, I don't really mind, or on the screen wherever you're doing your work. What is question 1? What skills does question 1 require? How many marks is it worth? What's question 2? You see where this is going? What skills does it require? How many marks is it worth? How much time should you spend on question 2? And name 5 language features you could discuss for question 2. So this is just a quick little refresh of the beginning of paper 1. So jot your answers down just in the back of your book. Keep a mental note so that it stays fresh in your head. I'm going to pause it there. Did you do it? You best have paused it. Question 1, inference and retrieval. You literally name 4 things. It's worth only 4 marks. Question 2 is language analysis, which is the skill as well. It's worth 8 marks. Spend about 10 minutes on it. And language features could be anything from oxymoron, simile, metaphor, alliteration, emotive language, powerful words if you get stuck, okay? So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So we're going to read the extract. Obviously, you're all more than capable of reading independently, but just in case you miss the sound of my voice, I'm going to read the extract to you anyway. So feel free to follow along, or alternatively you can just skip this bit and catch up at the kind of the next task. So as we're reading, think about what your initial reactions are to the text. Do you like it or not? Why? And would you want to read more? Are you engaged with this? Has it captured your attention? So it begins like this. The terror, which would not end for another 28 years, if it ever did end, began so far as I know or can tell with a boat made from a sheet of newspaper floating down a gutter swollen with rain. The boat bobbed, listed, righted itself again, dived bravely through treacherous whirlpools and continued on its way down Witcham Street toward the traffic light which marked the intersection of Witcham and Jackson. The 3 vertical lenses on all sides of the traffic light were dark this afternoon in the fall of 1957, and the houses were all dark too. There had been steady rain for a week now, and 2 days ago the winds had come as well. Most sections of Derry had lost their power then, and it was not back on yet. A small boy in a yellow slicker and red galoshes, which like wellies, ran cheerfully along beside the newspaper boat. The rain had not stopped, but it was finally slackening. It tapped on the yellow hood of the boy's slicker, sounding to his ears like rain on a shed roof, a comfortable, almost cosy sound. The boy in the yellow slicker was George Denborough. He was 6. Sorry if you can hear cats fighting in the background, that's my life. His brother William, known to most of the kids at Derry Elementary School, and even to his teachers who would never have used the nickname to his face, as Stuttering Bill, was at home, hacking out the last of a nasty case of influenza. In that autumn of 1957, 8 months before the real horrors began, and 28 years before the final showdown, Stuttering Bill was 10 years old. Bill had made the boat beside which George now ran. He had made it sitting up in his bed, his back propped against a pile of pillows while their mother played Fairy-Lise on the piano in the parlour, and rain swept restlessly against his bedroom window. About 3/4 of the way down the block, as one headed toward the intersection of a dead traffic light, Witcham Street was blocked to motor traffic by smudge pots and 4 orange storehouses. Stencilled across each of the horses was Derry Department of Public Works. Beyond them, the rain had spilled out of gutters clogged with branches and rocks and big sticky piles of autumn leaves. The water had first pried finger holes in the paving, and then snatched whole greedy handfuls, all of this by the 3rd day of the rains. By noon of the 4th day, big chunks of the street's surface were boating through the intersection of Jackson and Witcham like miniature white water rafts. By that time, many people in Derry had begun to make nervous jokes about arcs. The Public Works Department had managed to keep Jackson Street open, but Witcham was impassable from the sawhorses all the way down to the centre of town. But everyone agreed the worst was over. The Kenderskeag stream had crested just below its banks in the barrens and bare inches below the concrete sides of the canal which channelled it tightly as it passed through downtown. Right now, a gang of men, Zack Denborough, George and Bill's father among them, were removing the sandbags they had thrown up the day before with panicky haste. Yesterday overflow and expensive flood damage had seemed almost inevitable. God knew it had happened before. The flooding in 1931 had been a disaster which had cost millions of dollars and almost 24 lives. That was a long time ago, but there were still enough people who remembered it to scare the rest. One of the flood victims had been found 25 miles east in Bucksport. The fish had eaten this unfortunate gentleman's eyes, 3 of his fingers and most of his left foot. Clutched in what remained of his hands had been a Ford steering wheel. Now, though, the river was receding, and when the new Bangor Hydro Dam went in upstream, the river would cease to be a threat, or so said Zack Denborough, who worked for Bangor Hydroelectric. As for the rest, well, future floods could take care of themselves. The thing was to get through this one, to get the power back on and then to forget it. In Derry, such forgetting of tragedy and disaster was almost an art, as Bill Denborough would come to discover in the course of time. George paused just before the storehouses at the edge of a deep ravine that had been cut through the tar surface of Witcham Street. This ravine ran on an almost exact diagonal. It ended on the far side of the street, roughly 40 feet farther down the hill from where he now stood, on the right. He laughed aloud, the sound of solitary childish glee, a bright runner in that grey afternoon, as a vagary of flowing water took his paper boat into the scale model rapids which had been formed by the break in the tar. The urgent water had cut a channel, which ran along the diagonal, and so his boat travelled from one side of Witcham Street to the other, the current carrying it so fast that George had to sprint to keep up with it. Water sprayed out from beneath his galoshes in muddy sheets. The buckles made a jolly jingling as George Denborough ran towards his strange death. And the feeling which filled him at that moment was clear and simple love for his brother Bill. Love and a touch of regret that Bill couldn't be here to see this and be a part of it. Of course he'd try to describe it to Bill when he got home, but he knew he wouldn't be able to make him see it, the way Bill would have been able to make him see it if their positions had been reversed. Bill was good at reading and writing, but even at his age, George was wise enough to know that wasn't the only reason why Bill got A's on his report cards, or why his teachers liked his composition so well. Telling was only part of it. Bill was good at seeing. The boat nearly whistled along the diagonal channel, just a page torn from the classified section of the Derry News. But now George imagined it as a PT boat in a war movie, like the ones he sometimes saw down at the Derry Theatre with Bill at Saturday matinees. A war picture with John Wayne fighting. The prow of a newspaper boat threw sprays of water to either side as it rushed along, and then it reached the gutter on the left side of Witcham Street. A fresh streamlet rushed over the break in the tar at this point, creating a fairly large whirlpool, and it seemed to him that the boat must be swamped and capsized. It leaned alarmingly, and then George cheered as it righted itself, turned, and went racing on down toward the intersection. George sprinted to catch up. Over his head, a grim gust of October wind rattled the trees, now almost completely unburdened of their freight of coloured leaves by the storm, which had been this year a reaper of the most ruthless sort. Okay, so before we move on, initial reactions. Do you like it? Why not? And has it engaged you? Would you want to read more? What I would recommend you do is pause the video now and just go back. The copy of the text is attached on Go for Schools and Teams. just go back and reread it. Make sure you understand it. You have the luxury of time at the moment, so make sure you give yourself a proper chance to understand the text and what's happening. You might find it handy to kind of draw images next to each paragraph or just summarise what's going on, because it's quite a lengthy read. So pause it now and then come back once you've done that. Okay, question 1, nice and easy. So read the first part of the source, list just 4 things from this part of the source we learn about the boat. It says 5 minutes at the top there. I doubt you're going to need that long, so just using those lines below, write down in your exercise books or on your Word documents just 4 things that you learn about the boat from that particular part of the text. Pause it here and then come back. Okay, question 2, our main focus for today. So look in detail at the language in this extract, lines 11 to 24 of the source, which I've put on the left there. How does the writer use language here to describe the brothers George and Bill? So on the left, I've put the section of the text that it's asking you to focus on, and I've emboldened particular parts that you could use if you were struggling for ideas. And again, because you have time, we're not in exam conditions, what I would recommend you do is just select several quotes that you could focus on, things you could write about, write them down or type them, explode them, so really considering what are the connotations of the language, what is the writer trying to achieve here, what's their intentions, how is the writer trying to present these 2 brothers in this section of the text. Obviously you can think about it within the context of the whole extract, but your analysis needs to be focused right here. Once you've done that, I'd give yourself 10 minutes to write your response. It doesn't need to be detailed. And if you're kind of having a bit of a block, getting back into the habit of lockdown learning, I've put some sentence starters on the slide there as well. So give yourself, 10-15 minutes to write down some quotes and explode them, and then 10 minutes to write up your response. So pause the video now and then come back when you're ready. Okay, so nearly the final slide. I just want you to check yourself. So, in your response, did you answer the question and refer to how the brothers are described, how they presented? Did you include quotes? Did you analyse the devices in the quotes? So, did you talk about the writer's methods, the simile, the metaphor, the imagery, whatever it might have been? Did you zoom in onto key words in the quote? So, the word gleeful suggests. So you're really focusing on that close analysis. That's where you're going to get the marks. Did you explore alternative interpretation? So what else could that phrase suggest? And did you make sure that you made a range of points? So you didn't just write one little paragraph, you wrote at least 2 decent sized ones. With that in mind, give yourself a what went well and an even better if in a different coloured pen. It doesn't have to be green. And I reckon that should take you 5-10 minutes. So pause it here and then come back. Okay, final thing. Can you please submit this work via assignments on Teams? I've put it on there using the same format as it is on Go for Schools. So all I need is your question 2 and your self-assessment. It's really important that I know where you feel the gaps in your skills are and how we can improve them. And as always, feel free to drop me an email if you need any help, not necessarily just with this, but general support, because you guys are having a really tough time. But keep positive. Regardless of what happens, you'll be absolutely fine. Take care and I hope to see you soon.